So imagine you're reading an incredibly long web novel that you've been following for a very long time, despite the fact that you kinda think it's complete trash, and have no issue expressing that opinion in its comment section. But you stick with it out of this intense hatred and need to consume it and find out what happens next to the incredibly OP protagonist, the harem of literally hundreds of women that he has married over the course of the book, and the horrible scumbag, absolute disgusting monster of an antagonist who the protagonist has been plotting revenge on since he became the disciple of said antagonist, who spent all of that time being an absolute abusive asshole, eventually culminating in throwing the protagonist into an endless abyss, inside of which he suffered for 5 years, making the very brutal revenge a very satisfying and essential part of the book. So you're reaching the end of a chapter of the book and come to the realization once again that it is so completely trash, with the only saving grace being how cool the dark, sexy demon protagonist is, which you mean in a totally heterosexual way, because you are completely straight and not simping over a fictional dude because you're straight. Where was I? So you're reading this book, realize that you absolutely hate it and that it is complete trash, and then you die. Seriously. So, you're dead. It's not actually specified whether you met Truck-kun or had bad food poisoning or what actually happened. That's not really what's important. What matters is that you're dead. With your dying thought being how awful this book is. And then you wake up in the book that we just went over, you absolutely despising, in the body of the main antagonist, who we also just went over died a very graphic, horrible, satisfying death. You hear a Google Translate-like voice congratulating you, welcoming you to this world, and informing you that there are specific plot points that no matter what you're going to have to perform, or else you'll be returned to your other world, in which we have just established that you are dead. So you need to somehow be nice enough not to get murdered by the protagonist, but also keep his tragic backstory mostly on track, which of course included you pushing him to an endless abyss, in which he will suffer for 5 years and come back super strong and ready to absolutely destroy you. So basically, you're fucked. Okay, hi gays and weebs. How did we get here? So, for those of you who have been watching me for a while, and yeah, I'm 100% aware it is only a small handful of you, and at this point my views are so down, I should probably either stop doing this or give up on getting them back up, but I'm in too much of a habit and I'm too stubborn and also maybe kind of like this after everything that I'm not gonna stop, even though it really does suck to have peaked in quarantine and have no idea how to get back there. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so for those happy few of you who remember, back in 2020 I discovered a certain low-budget Chinese anime that led me to reading a certain web novel and basically sustained my insanity for the past several years. That anime was Scumbag System, a decent but vastly underfunded adaptation of MXTX's first novel, Scum-Villain's Self-Saving System. A novel that is now fully and officially translated in English and bound in beautiful books that I am obsessed with. Scum-Villain is probably the author's least loved and definitely her least popular book. And while when I look at the chokehold her other two works have on so many people, the intricate and beautiful worlds they have, the complex characters they discuss, the detailed plots and relationships they delve into, and compare them to demon protagonist who wants to fuck his isekai teacher who he was supposed to brutally murder because instead of being a complete dick, said isekai teacher showed him genuine kindness and cared about him, then, yeah, I get why. But I have a love for this book that is hard to articulate but makes me want to defend it. And for all its faults, all the crack, problematic elements, and interesting choices, I don't think Scum-Villain ever forgets what it is. The story is satire until it's not. The characters are cutouts until they're not. And the romance is flawed until it's not. The story is a mess and constantly being called out for that by the main character, as he's forced to keep it on track to both the horribly written book he read it as and to the much more nuanced and developed outline the author once wanted it to be. An author who, spoilers, is also isekai'd into the book as well. Also a crappy cannon fodder character who is supposed to die, and also accidentally gets a hot demon who is supposed to kill him to fall in love with him, a story that is shown more in the later released side stories, but is just as hilarious. You know, until it's not. I know this book isn't for everyone, and I get that. Trust me, I do. But I also don't think it's appreciated enough. And maybe it's less serious than the other two books. And maybe the relationship is more problematic. I mean, it is. And not even because of the whole teacher-student thing, which I do want to take this moment to address. Because like in every other piece of media that trope has been presented, it has given me the ick. And it would here, were it actually as much of an issue as the story jokes that it is. First off, the assumed age gap is honestly not as large as it would have been had the main character not been isekai'd into the story. And were there not a 3-year time skip in between, in which Luo Binghu goes through a lot and comes out as a very different character, meaning not only does the romantic setup wait until they're both very much adults, but Shen Qingqiu really does not even see Luo Binghu as a romantic interest until yet another time skipped, and even then it takes a lot of time, and could honestly be more clear, but at least as far as power dynamic, Shen Qingqiu does not take advantage of Luo Binghe and does not develop romantic feelings for him until he is very much an adult. So that issue, I will say, looks worse than it actually is. That issue. There are others, and to very softly defend those, I don't think that things we like in fiction need to be things that we want to see in real life. The relationship, as well as the two main characters, gets a lot worse before it can get better, especially Luo Binghe. Part of that is by influences that we later find out are out of his control, but I also think that his character arc deconstructs the pain of abandonment, and the tragic backstory is usually placed on dark protagonists. It's ugly, but at the root of it, it's about trauma. And honestly, it's kind of refreshing to see a character that is negatively impacted by the trauma and terrible things that they've gone through, and it stands as a counterpoint to the original version of him, who only got more powerful and more cool after all these terrible things happened to him. In the version of the book that the main character is creating around him, we see a character who has been put through hell and constantly needs validation and understanding, because sometimes terrible things don't make you stronger, they just damage you. And as shitty as that is, it's real life, when so many times in fiction all we see is characters who get better and get stronger, when that can be so unrelatable and hard for people who are actually struggling to see. And maybe I'm reading too into Demon Boy Who Wants to Fuck His Teacher, but maybe I'm not. And that is part of the beauty of this weird, tropey mess of a masterpiece. I'm being vague to avoid spoilers. I might do a full-on deconstruction of the book at some point, because why would I work on my actual thesis for my MA when I could use all that theory and analysis to talk about this motherfucker, or teacher fucker. That's a bad joke, but I'm keeping it because I had to say the teacher fucker joke thing 3 times, and like that it makes it's not as funny as it is, but I'm keeping it in the video anyway. So anyway, I love this book. I know that it's a bit of a niche that I've found myself putting all of this passion into, and that's why it's taken so long for me to make this video, because I've wanted to for a while, and I finally dragged other people into reading it, which gave me the motivation I needed to actually make all of the costumes. And before anyone asks, I do also love the other 2 series and intend to also make content for them too. But as mentioned before, my views are really down, and if I'm not going to get them back up to where they used to be, at least I can have fun making things that I'm passionate about, which for some fucking reason is this. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, or you'll see me, because that's how this works. Bye!